So, vice president, pretty boring job, right? If you read through the handout and kind of noticed what he does, it could be super boring. So I just want to touch on two pieces here about the vice president. Like first, I think the handout I try to make it as clear as possible, but remember there are times when the president isn't killed. Okay, so maybe the president could get in a car accident, right, and he's very injured. Maybe he could have a stroke and he's still alive but unconscious. So, like in that case, then the disability clause of the 25th Amendment kicks in. And there's two pieces to it, right? So, like, a president might know that they're going to be disabled or incapacitated. Okay, maybe you're going in for open heart surgery. Or, like on the handout I mentioned, maybe President Bush knew that he was going to have a colonoscopy and he was going to be, out of it for 7 or 8 hours. So, you can, then as the president, you can sign your powers over temporarily so that if some crazy thing happens, somebody is vested with the powers of the president, right? And that's the vice president. Or if it's unexpected, the difference then is that the vice president and the cabinet have to vote to give the vice president power. And the key there is check and balance, right? Because man is evil, man is bad. And so this way, if the vice president and a majority of the cabinet have to vote on it, there can't just be the vice president who steps in and says, well, president's hurt, better give me power. Okay, so it prevents that corruption aspect. All right, the other piece about the vice president that I want to touch on is that modern vice presidents have been way more involved, right? They've gotten super involved. So they do way more than their two official jobs, right? Two official jobs, get involved if something happens to the president and break a tie in the Senate. But those things almost never happen. But modern vice presidents, they meet with foreign leaders, right? They advise the president on stuff. They give speeches. They'll travel. Heck, right now, Mike Pence, our vice president, he's in charge of the coronavirus task force. Okay, now you don't hear him talk as much as President Trump. Okay, President Trump is still kind of the main spokesperson about it. But behind the scenes, Mike Pence is running the show of this big task force of experts that's handling the coronavirus. All right, and that's a pretty big job, and he's been given that. So he's pretty involved. But it wasn't always that way. Let me tell you quickly a famous story where the vice president of the United States as a job began to transition from really boring and didn't do much to all of a sudden being very, very involved in things. All right, so the stage is set here. It is the middle of World War II, 1941, 1942, and Franklin Roosevelt is president. And he's sitting in his Oval Office. He gets a knock on the door. And it's two very famous scientists. It's Enrico Fermi and Albert Einstein. And they come in and they say, Mr. President, we believe that the Germans are attempting to build a bomb. We'll call it the atomic bomb. And this bomb, we believe, could destroy entire cities, potentially entire countries. And the Germans are already beginning to try to build it. We would like your authorization to begin to build it ourselves so that we can beat the Germans to it. And of course, Franklin Roosevelt was like, you got it, guys. Go for it. Whatever you need from me. Well, all right. So 3 years go by. It's 1945. And the atomic bomb is just about finished. The problem is Franklin Roosevelt dies in office. Right? He was elected several times to the presidency, 4 times in fact. He dies 6 months into his fourth presidency, fourth term. And his vice president, Harry Truman, takes over as president. So it's like his second day as president now. And President Truman gets a knock on his door, same door, Oval Office. It's Albert Einstein and Enrico Fermi. And they say, hey, Mr. Truman, Mr. President, yeah, so the atomic bomb is pretty much finished. Like, we just finished testing. We need to know, do you think we should drop it on the Japanese or not? And President Truman's reaction was, the what bomb? Huh? I've never heard of that. right? I mean, in other words, the point of the story is, as vice president, Harry Truman did not know about something as important to our national security and to World War II as the atomic bomb. Okay, now that is crazy. We would never, ever think of that being the case today. And from Harry Truman on to the present day, vice presidents are roped into important meetings. They're informed about national security issues, right? They're way more involved because we know, just like that, and they could be president, and they would have to decide whether to attack an enemy with nuclear bombs, how to respond to a terrorist threat, etc. Right? And so ever since Harry Truman, all of a sudden now the vice presidents have become almost like a major assistant or advisor to the president.